Chosen one, you didn't silence them with arguments. You silenced them with evolution. While they talked, judged, mocked, and underestimated, you were watching, listening, studying. They thought your quiet meant weakness. They thought your restraint was fear. They mistook your awareness for softness. But you weren't slow. You were collecting data. Every conversation became intelligence. Every interaction became strategy. While others performed, you decoded. While others reacted, you mapped patterns. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was surveillance. Your stillness wasn't fear. It was preparation. You understood something they never did. The loudest person in the room is rarely the smartest. So you chose observation over exhibition, clarity over chaos, discipline over impulse. While they rush to be seen, you learned how people move when they think no one is watching. You studied tone, timing, contradictions, hidden motives. You noticed who spoke differently in private and in public. You watched who celebrated your wins and who smiled only at your losses. They assumed you were behind, but you were ahead, silently positioning yourself. You let them reveal themselves without interruption. You allowed patterns to repeat so they could expose their own designs. You memorized behaviors, not excuses. You tracked cycles, not stories. Where they saw moments, you saw systems. Where they saw conflict, you saw blueprints. And while they mistook patience for passivity, you were building an internal map of every battlefield you might one day walk into. Your quiet became your shield. Your restraint became your edge. Your awareness became your weapon. You learned when to speak and when silence would speak louder, when to confront and when to let time do the dismantling, when to move forward and when to step back and let truth surface on its own. They never realized that the one who watches longest hunts on off and controls the outcome. So while they underestimated your calm, you refined your discernment. While they doubted your strength, you sharpened your mind. While they mistook your stillness for confusion, you prepared for precision. And now, without announcements, without noise, without warning, you rise carrying information they never knew you possessed, clarity they cannot match, and awareness that makes you impossible to manipulate again. Because the most dangerous power is not force, not noise, not domination. It is understanding. They built their opinions around the version of you that was still healing. They met you in a season of wounds, confusion, rebuilding, and decided that moment defined your destiny. They froze you in your lowest chapter and named it your permanent identity. They judged your future by your scars instead of your capacity. They mistook recovery for limitation and struggle for your ceiling. They wrote your ending before you finished becoming. They narrated your life from a single page, ignoring the chapters still forming in silence. They assumed the broken version of you was the final draft, never imagining that healing was not the conclusion, but the beginning of a rewrite. But while they recycled assumptions, you were upgrading internally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, not for applause, not for revenge, for alignment. No announcement, no performance, no permission, just quiet discipline, late nights with your thoughts, conversations with your conscience, rewiring beliefs inherited from wounded people, unlearning patterns that kept you small, strengthening boundaries where pain once lived. You didn't change your essence. You refined it. You didn't abandon yourself. You remembered who you were before survival reshaped you. By the time they looked again, you were unrecognizable, not louder, not arrogant, not flashy, just clearer, calmer, more grounded, and that confused them. Because the version of you they memorized no longer existed. The insecurity they relied on was gone. The self-doubt they expected no longer answered. The wounds they thought they could press had already healed, not because you changed who you are, but because you outgrew every box they tried to seal you in. You expanded beyond their labels, beyond their projections, beyond the limitations they assigned to protect their own comfort. Now the old roles don't fit. The one who stayed silent to be accepted. The one who explained themselves to be understood. The one who shrank to keep peace. That version retired. The old tricks don't work. The guilt no longer hooks you. The shame no longer bends you. The manipulation no longer lands. The old narratives collapse on contact because reality contradicts them now. You don't over-explain because clarity doesn't need defense. You don't shrink because you finally recognize your own scale. You don't chase validation because you no longer outsource your worth, and that unsettles them deeply, because people who survive on controlling perception cannot handle someone who no longer needs approval. They don't know how to speak to you now. They don't know which version to reference. They don't know where the old access went. They sense the shift. They feel the distance. They notice the authority in your silence. Not the authority of dominance, but the authority of self-possession. You are no longer becoming. You are arriving. And the most unsettling part for them is this: they are still speaking to a past version of you that no longer lives here. They stacked gossip on shallow assumptions. They built entire conclusions from fragments, whispers, half-heard stories, moments stripped of context. They trusted noise over truth, volume over evidence, popularity over accuracy. They believed that if enough voices repeated the same distortion, it would become reality. They thought louder voices meant stronger stories, forgetting that truth does not need an audience to remain true. But you didn't defend yourself. You understood that arguing with distortion only feeds it. You recognized that people committed to misunderstanding. You are not looking for clarity. They are looking for confirmation. So you chose alignment over explanation, embodiment over argument, growth over rebuttal. You lived so aligned that their lies exposed themselves, not through confrontation, but through contrast. Your consistency contradicted their narrative. Your peace dismantled their projections. Your integrity quietly invalidated every rumor stacked against you. While they performed outrage and rehearsed accusations, you became living evidence that something about their story didn't add up. While they fought a battle you already finished, you kept evolving. They were still replaying old scenes, reliving old conflicts, trying to provoke reactions from a version of you that no longer existed. They shadowboxed a memory while you stepped into a future. They strategized against your past while you redesigned your mind. You rewired your thinking, not superficially, but at the root. You questioned inherited beliefs, dismantled fear-based narratives, challenged the internal voices that were never truly yours. You identified the programs installed by trauma, by rejection, by survival, and you began to uninstall them one by one. You deleted old programming that taught you to over-explain, to apologize for your boundaries, to minimize your power to keep others comfortable. You dissolved emotional triggers that once handed others the remote control to your nervous system. You disconnected the buttons they once pressed effortlessly. The guilt, the shame, the need to be understood, the hunger for approval. Now shade doesn't move you because you recognize projection when you see it. Games don't provoke you because you understand manipulation thrives on reaction. Drama no longer hooks you because you value regulation over retaliation, clarity over chaos. Manipulation can't hook you because the wound it once used has healed. The insecurity it once targeted has been integrated. The fear it once exploited no longer governs your decisions. You operate on spiritual intelligence now, a form of awareness that cannot be taught from books alone. Clarity born from pain that forced you to look inward. Wisdom forged from betrayal that taught you discernment. Awareness sharpened by survival that trained you to read energy before language, intention before action. You sense shifts before words change. You notice hesitation before excuses form. You feel incongruence between what is said and what is meant. You recognize when kindness is control in disguise, when concern masks surveillance, when praise carries hidden hooks. Not because you are suspicious, but because experience refined your perception. Your intelligence now is not reactive, it is preventative. You don't wait to be hurt to set boundaries. You don't wait to be betrayed to withdraw access. You don't wait for patterns to repeat, to exit the cycle. And that is what truly disarms them. Because manipulators rely on unconsciousness. They depend on emotional reflex, unresolved wounds, unexamined beliefs. They require confusion to function. But you brought clarity into the system. You no longer argue with distortion. You step away from it. You no longer chase explanations. You embody truth. You no longer seek justice through revenge. You allow alignment to reorganize everything around you. Now when they attempt the old tactics, Nothing lands. Nothing ignites. Nothing sticks. The fire finds no fuel. You didn't become colder. You became clearer. You didn't harden. You healed. You didn't lose your sensitivity. You learned how to protect it. And in doing so, you reached a level of power few understand. The power of being unreachable by dysfunction. Not untouchable because you dominate, but untouchable because you are free. You don't prove. You don't perform. Your presence speaks first. You no longer enter rooms trying to convince anyone of who you are. You no longer announce your worth, explain your depth, or display your power for approval. You simply arrive, aligned, grounded, whole, and the atmosphere adjusts on its own. Because real authority does not need volume, real confidence does not need decoration, real power does not introduce itself. They feel it before you say a word. In the way you hold silence without discomfort, in the way your eyes stay calm under pressure, in the way you move without urgency or insecurity. Your presence carries coherence, and coherence reorganizes energy wherever it enters. They can't decode you, because what you built can't be accessed by the mindset that tried to destroy you. You outgrew the frequency they operate on. You healed past the level where their tactics function. They are still thinking in survival patterns while you are living in clarity. They are still playing control games while you are operating in self-possession. So their tools don't work here. Their manipulation finds no entry point. Their narratives find no anchor. Their projections find no reflection. You became immune, not numb, not detached, not indifferent. Immune because the wounds that once made you reactive have closed. Immune because the insecurities that once made you pliable have integrated. Immune because the fear that once made you doubt yourself no longer governs your choices. You recognize manipulation before the lie forms. You sense shifts before actions follow. You catch gaslighting in real time. You notice the pause before the distortion, the breath before the deflection, the change in tone before the story bends. The subtle reversal where responsibility is quietly reassigned. The moment concern turns into control. And you don't argue with it. You don't panic. You don't need to prove what you see. You simply adjust access. Not because you're cold, but because you healed the wound they once used to control you. The abandonment wound that once made you tolerate disrespect. The shame wound that once made you over-explain. The fear wound that once made you seek approval from unsafe people. Those entry points are sealed now. Your intelligence isn't credentials. It's experience, endurance, emotional mastery. It's nights you survived without guidance. Betrayals you metabolized without becoming bitter. Losses you integrated without losing your softness. Pain that taught you discernment instead of paranoia. You didn't memorize theories about human behavior. You lived inside them. You learned patterns by watching them repeat. You learned timing by feeling cycles unfold. You learned truth by seeing how lies unravel themselves over time. You read energy because you had to learn when words couldn't be trusted. You hear what isn't said because silence once carried more information than speech. You see contradictions instantly because inconsistency once cost you deeply. You don't just listen to sentences. You track posture, breathing, micro-expressions, hesitations, incongruence between tone and content. You notice when someone's mouth says peace, but their nervous system says threat. When their compliment carries envy. When their concern carries surveillance. When their agreement carries resistance. Not to judge, but to protect alignment. Your awareness now is not hypervigilance. It is refined perception. You are not scanning for danger. You are recognizing coherence. You don't assume malice, but you no longer ignore patterns. You don't confront everything, but you withdraw from what does not align. And this is why your presence unsettles certain people, because they cannot perform around you. They cannot distort easily. They cannot hide inconsistencies long. They cannot access you through guilt, fear, flattery, or confusion. They sense that you see too much, not with suspicion, but with clarity. And clarity is threatening to those who survive on distortion. You don't expose. You don't accuse. You don't dominate. You simply remain coherent, and coherence collapses false systems automatically. That is the intelligence you carry now. Not loud, not performative, not aggressive, quiet, integrated, unreachable, not because you are guarded, but because you are healed. And now when they look at you, they fumble, not because you confront them, not because you expose them with words, but because your presence exposes what they hide. Something in you destabilizes the performance. The mask slips, the confidence stutters. The rehearsed identity loses coherence, not because you attack, but because you remain real. They feel seen without being examined, understood without being questioned, and that unsettles those who survive on illusion. They fear one thing most. You don't need them anymore. Not their approval, not their validation, not their permission, not their protection. The power they once held came from your attachment, from your desire to be accepted, from your willingness to belong at any cost, from the hope that if you pleased them enough, they would finally recognize your worth. But that economy collapsed. You stopped competing for approval, stopped performing for crowds, stopped shaping yourself for rooms that never deserved your spirit. You no longer contort your truth to fit fragile egos. You no longer dim your insight to preserve fragile hierarchies. You no longer trade authenticity for access. You chose alignment over applause, truth over popularity, peace over ego. And that decision severed every invisible leash, because systems built on control cannot function once the subject no longer needs validation. And that's why they can't reach you. Their incentives don't move you. Their praise doesn't intoxicate you. Their criticism doesn't destabilize you. Their rejection no longer threatens your identity. They're playing an external game. Metrics, status, influence, perception. You're playing an internal one. Integrity, coherence, alignment, self-possession. They chase attention. You cultivate clarity. They measure worth by witnesses. You measure it by resonance. They wear masks. You stay the same everywhere. The same in private as in public. The same in silence as in spotlight. The same with power as with humility. And that consistency unnerves those who live in fragments. In a world full of pretenders, authenticity became your ultimate weapon. Not as performance, but as presence. They waited for you to slip, to contradict yourself, to reveal that you were playing the same game, just with better strategy. They waited for scandal, for weakness, for inconsistency, for the moment your image would crack, but you never gave it to them, because you weren't building an image, you were building a self. And then, quietly, deliberately, without ceremony, you left the arena entirely. You exited comparison. You withdrew from performance. You abandoned the need to be ranked, rated, validated, or approved. And in leaving the game, you became untouchable by its rules. They can no longer defeat you because you are no longer competing. They can no longer control you because you are no longer seeking. They can no longer define you because you finally defined yourself. And that is the freedom they cannot imitate, the power they cannot counterfeit, and the sovereignty they cannot reach. You built quietly. You grew steadily. You let results speak. They predicted failure. You succeeded. They wrote your ending. You authored your comeback, not with revenge, with reality, not with rage, with receipts. You didn't destroy anyone. You let truth do the work. And here's the final truth they never anticipated. You weren't collecting evidence to attack. You were collecting clarity to free yourself. Free from gaslighting, free from confusion, free from rewritten history. You learned patterns, cracked cycles, mapped manipulation. Now you don't get surprised. You exit before the betrayal. You see tactics across people, not just faces. You recognize the formula anywhere, and when it appears, you don't react. You opt out. That broke their entire system, because manipulators need your emotion, your defense, your approval, and you gave them nothing. You became unplayable. They built a narrative to cage you, but you became the author. While they speculated, you produced results. While they gossiped, you built substance. While they predicted your end, you wrote your rise. The pressure they sent to crush you, became the forge that sharpened you. Every insult became insight. Every doubt became discipline. Every humiliation became the first draft of a divine comeback. Now when they look at you, they don't just see you. They see themselves, stripped of masks, exposed by your growth, confronted by your calm. You didn't raise your voice, you became undeniable. Your power now is internal, self-sustaining, unstealable. You don't need approval. You are the source, and that terrifies those who try to silence you. Because you didn't just take your power back, you became it. Humiliation was never your ending. It was the rough draft of your masterpiece. So understand this, you didn't win by fighting louder. You won by evolving smarter. You didn't silence critics with words. You made their voices irrelevant with alignment. You shocked them with intelligence, not by showing it, but by becoming who they never predicted, never controlled, and severely underestimated. Welcome to your divine comeback. The game is over. You didn't survive, you transcended, and the most powerful version of you is only just beginning. And here's the truth that seals it all. You were never meant to fit the old story. You were meant to outgrow it. Your comeback is not loud. It is inevitable. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to this channel for more awakenings, clarity, and power. Your rise has only just begun.